Namaskar. Today I have wonderful guest with me. I met him 1 year back here in Kathmandu, and when first time I met him, I had a conversation with him. And that time I didn't notice about his work. I thought he is a normal American tourist who come Nepal to visit, and he will stay here and visit somewhere, some places, and will go back. And last year I been to Pokhara and I stayed in Pokhara. When I was in Pokhara, I got a call from him, and then I thought this is the tourist who come to visit Pokhara. We met Pokhara and we discussed, and I asked about his return, and then he said he has a routine go back to United States. So I was thinking about him. Now he is only a tourist, and this year in Dasari, again met him, and I asked, "Oh, you didn't go United States?" And he said, "I've been to United States. I met my family and friends, and again I came here." So then I had a deep conversation with him, and I came to know about his work, and he's doing a wonderful job. A man who traveled from 55,000 miles away and comes here, and when he came here just for like his graduate purpose or like academic trip was that, and then again he came here and then he traveled remote area and he started to social service in remote area. When I came to know about his work, he's working in Calicut and he's doing support to the youth people and community, I mean the community people in Calicut. That was incredible. That deeply touched me. And I thought I wanted to know more about him. And then when I heard his story, when he shared me his experience, I found incredible and very much inspirational. I think this story will inspire all our youth and all people who want to work for the social service. I'm very pleased to introduce Mr. Philip Freeman, and who has been working great work for the rural community of Nepal. So, Philip, welcome to this talk.
Thank you.
So, Philip, what you shared with me that about your book
Mm.
that is very much impressed me, and then I want you share this story. हुन्छ सो तपाईँलाई नेपाली बोल्न आउँछ
आउँछ
फर्स्ट टाइम नेपाल कहिले आउनुभयो
2019.
2019 के प्रसङ्गमा नेपाल आउनुभएको थियो what brought you to Nepal?
My first time coming to Nepal was just a good opportunity that I came across after graduating class 12 to come here.
So you came here after 12.
Class 12 I graduated, and less than 1 month after I graduated, I came to Nepal free of cost, and I was able to teach here and experience Nepali culture.
So where did you teach?
I taught in one school in Basundara
Basundara.
and another school in Mustang at a
Mustang.
government
Oh,
school.
you've been to Mustang during your first visit?
During my first visit, actually just a week and a half after getting here. So they said there's a school there that could use a teacher now, and I did not know what Mustang was or what significance it had in Nepal, right? But I wanted to go and experience.
How did you go Mustang?
By bus.
By bus.
25-hour night bus.
Oh, how did you feel when you travel in Nepal in night bus?
Well, I hadn't really even taken that many buses like that in the U.S., right?
Oh, okay.
Night buses. Oftentimes, flights are more common in the U.S. But so that was definitely an experience, and on Nepali roads especially.
Okay.
But I saw most of it at night.
Was that scary?
Oh, definitely. And I was still settling in, like, to the food, and my stomach was settling. Back then, I was not so used to the food here.
So you had a complete new experience.
Very new.
Okay. So what did you teach in Mustang?
In Mustang, I taught science from classes 4 through 8. And in Basundara, I taught math.
So what was your experience teaching in the classroom?
I really enjoyed getting to know like Nepali youth and children, and honestly, it was really fun. I did put a lot of pressure on myself to try and teach it best as I could, but also I knew like the standards. I witnessed like the standards in Nepal, and I knew I could also have some fun and get to know.
So how did you
students.
experience with Nepali children, and particularly what they thought about you in that time?
Yeah, they would always ask me strange questions, right? It was dependent on like whether I was in a class 4 or whether I was talking with like class 8 students.
Did you understand their questions?
Most of them, yes.
Or did they ask you in English?
The older students would, yeah.
Okay.
And when I first came here, I didn't speak Nepali,
Mhm.
but I've been learning it since then.
So, what was your when you were in the United States before coming to Nepal? What was your impression about Nepal?
Really, I was trying to build one still while I was coming. I had met one young lady who was staying in my city studying,
Mhm.
who was from Nepal, and
Okay.
she talked with me a little bit about Nepal and Nepali culture.
Mhm.
And also, I went to one Indian restaurant, and there
Okay.
was someone from Kathmandu who told me
Mhm.
about it. And really, the main thing I had heard was like, get out of Kathmandu, experience like the beauty outside of the valley, right?
Okay.
That was what one person told me.
Mhm.
But really, I just came here with an open mind to
Mhm.
see a
Mhm.
different world and try to
Mhm.
expand my perception.
Very honestly, can you tell us your like first any experience? What did you experience on that time?
Uh, when I first came here, it was definitely my personality definitely changed. Right in the U.S., I was known for being more loud and
Mhm.
extroverted, but coming to a whole new culture,
Mhm.
I became more reserved and
Mhm.
more observant, like just observing the different interactions and how
Mhm.
people acted to try and understand the culture, even just like the minute lifestyle
Yeah.
of the culture.
So because the life in the US is completely different than here, you have
Mm,
lots of facilities,
mm,
like completely like very open system and like individuality and so many things are
mm.
here. So what did you find here?
Something that I really enjoyed, but I've come to know even more now after staying here for longer, is that culture of community in
Mhm.
Nepal that I really like because, like you say, it's very individualistic in the
Mhm.
U.S. culture. But here in Nepal, there's such a strong like semblance of community
Community bonding.
uh, and of helping others, whether you're in the city or in the village. Now,
Mhm.
that's not always stated true in Nepali culture, but it's very strong
You like it?
throughout. And something I like because I did not experience that. I experienced that in some parts of my life growing up in the
Mhm.
U.S., but not widely. Like it is here.
Okay. So what sort of family you have? Like it's a combined or like a nuclear family in US?
Combined matlab.
I mean, like, are you staying with your grandfather, like
Hmm.
father, mother, grandfather? That is called combined family,
Yeah,
joint
no.
family.
No, so growing up, I stayed with my mom and my sisters.
Okay.
And uh,
So,
yeah.
did you have experience of love and affection of your grandfather and grandmother?
My grandfather, I never. On
Oh,
one side, I got to know, but on the other side, I never really got to have a
oh.
relationship with my older grandfather. And I've known both my grandmothers.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
You know. So, like in our family, like my son, he's living with his
Mm.
grandfather. Like we have, like my mother passed away 3 years, 2 years back,
Uh,
3 years back. So otherwise, like in Nepal, we have a tradition to live in a
yeah,
joint family. You know,
support them
did you
and different.
experience that?
No.
I mean, did you experience in Nepal? Like,
Oh,
did you
in
see
Nepal?
that in
Yeah.
many families?
Yes, it's very common here.
Okay.
Whether by circumstance or by
Mhm.
desire, right? Like,
Almost, it's a culture.
yeah,
It's a culture.
of course, yeah, staying with family, even extended family, aunties and
Right,
uncles,
extended family,
whether
exactly.
when it's needed or whatnot.
Mhm. So, what particular till now, like almost 3 or 4 years, like three
Yeah,
years. So, what one most very much exciting thing you observed about Nepal?
most exciting,
Yeah, most exciting, most interesting, and like very much happiest thing.
happiest thing. I really love the cultural traditions.
Okay, cultural tradition.
Obviously, not all aspects of
Hmm.
culture are going to be like something to admire, but the cultural traditions of Nepal I really enjoy and admire, and I've
Hmm.
always loved like experiencing. And it's so diverse. And
Okay.
in the U.S., we don't have such a rich culture of
Hmm.
like having cultural traditions and such. We have holidays, of course, but
Hmm.
uh, they're not as cultural and or as like deep as they are here in Nepal, right?
Okay.
Or as old.
Okay,
Let's say
Philip,
staying
like this is very good conversation going on. Like, can you tell us, like, can you share the story? Like, what made you to go Calicut?
to go Calicut
Yeah,
specifically.
yeah.
Well, by the time I first heard about Calicut, I had been in Nepal for I stayed here for over a year by then,
Hmm.
coming on a year and a half, and I had visited most places in East Nepal
Hmm.
since they're more accessible. and many places here in like the central area, Kathmandu, Kolkata.
Mhm.
But I had never gone beyond that, and I know I've always heard that far west has a very different culture in its own and
Mhm.
very different lifestyle. Um, and I had a good friend Kamraj, and when I was staying in East Nepal, actually in Sankla Saba,
Mhm.
I met one low caste lady who was staying in the village I was in, but it was a Brahmin village,
Mhm.
and I saw like the lifestyle and the job she had to take to support her and her family.
Mhm.
Um, and I wanted to help, so we built a pig farm,
Okay.
and I raised money in the U.S. and we built a pig farm and got some
In Sanklasara.
and got some things for her house, just so that she could start to make an income
Mhm.
and they could try to build some family wealth.
Oh.
And then after that, Kamaraj and I started talking about going to his village,
Mhm.
um, and seeing what it's like there. Uh, and so a few months after that, during Dasai, we went, and it was
In last Dasai you went to Kamraj house?
2021.
Okay, in 2021.
So there was no Dosa in 2020, right?
Mhm.
Then in 2021 we went, but we didn't. There were some uh, traditions and festivals we had to do, but about halfway through Dosa, there was a death in the village. So
Okay. So what happened if some close relatives die? We didn't celebrate.
exactly,
We didn't celebrate the
yeah.
festival.
So
Is that happened in?
yeah,
Calcutta?
the rest
That
of the
was very
time we
sad.
spent just experiencing village life, exploring
Mhm.
the village, meeting the people.
Mhm. So what most attract you in that village?
Um, Honestly, I love the cultural traditions, and I connected a lot with the people. But at the
Mhm.
same time, the problems there are like very apparent.
Okay.
Um,
What sort
and
of problem you observed in that place?
I think it's like there is like a cultural problem that's happening throughout Nepal
Mhm.
in many places. I think
Like particularly what sort of you observed?
like a cultural struggle to try and preserve the traditions, right?
Okay.
Many people they have to leave
Mhm.
when they're young. Most of like we have now a decent amount of members in our organization, but probably half of them stay outside of the village,
Mhm.
whether for work or education. And that puts a strain on how the cultural traditions can be taught down from generation to generation, right?
Okay.
And that's something I witnessed, and also like that drove us to want to do something in the village even more, right?
Mhm.
If we can actually accomplish our mission, then we can make it easier for the cultural traditions to like survive
Mhm.
and live on, because they have a very interesting culture there,
Right.
very interesting cultural traditions.
Mhm.
Um,
But you observe that the culture and tradition is being deteriorating day by day, right?
Not even that much. Like people want to keep the culture alive. I wouldn't
Okay.
say that any of whether the young people or the old people, they don't want to get rid of the culture. It's more of circumstance, right?
Mhm.
Out of circumstance, they're not able to keep the cultural traditions passing down
Mhm.
and keep like the teachings like strongly preserved from old generation to young generation to the next
Mhm.
generation. I don't think it's anyone's intent,
Mhm.
but yeah, it's definitely a problem, and that's why there's so much frustration, right? Like,
Mhm.
who is to blame when really
Right.
it's just a systematic thing that's happening, and
Mhm.
the culture is at stake.
So what you decided to do for the like support of that people of that area?
Mm. So we wanted to focus on ways that, obviously, we want to focus on the overall lifestyle and
Mhm.
living conditions for everyone, but
Mhm.
we have to focus on like the next generation of people who are going to be living there and staying there.
Mhm.
And if all the youth are leaving, if you go to another city for education or work, you'll probably settle there, right? If
Mhm.
everyone is leaving, then how can we make a village for 10, like 20 years, 30 years from now, right?
Okay.
So we want to invest in like the proper infrastructure, whether it's in
Mhm.
health or education, the actual infrastructure, and do it in a way that empowers the youth to
Mhm.
where they can build these skills. They can become leaders in the village themselves, and they
Mhm.
can keep the momentum and the drive going to embetter the village
Mhm.
and allow more people to stay.
So how you are going to start to support the people?
Yeah, so we just had our first programs this past Dosai, just
Mhm.
3 weeks ago. We had a school program and we also had a women's health program where we distributed
So,
reusable
did you
sanitary pads.
establish any organization or NGO or something like that?
Yeah, we have our No Limits Nepal NGO established.
It's an NGO. Okay.
It's just a Nepali NGO for now. We haven't
Mhm.
established in the U.S.,
Mhm.
but we're fully established here to run projects, social welfare projects in the
Mhm.
villages. And it was a great time introducing like the what our mission and our vision for the village is,
Mhm.
and talking with locals there, talking with principals, local leaders. We got a lot of ideas of what we can
Mhm.
do. Some of the problems. Some of the problems are not specific to Calicut.
Mhm.
In, like, for example, teachers. There's a shortage of teachers,
Mhm.
but that can be said about many, almost if not all, places of Nepal, right? So that's something that we witnessed a lot was a lack of teachers and a lack of general infrastructure.
Mhm.
But I also saw, like in the schools, a lack of investment in the students themselves, right?
Mhm.
A lot of times, NGOs from out will come and they'll build a building,
Mhm.
but then the students still don't have like supplies, and all they get at a government school is the books, so
Mhm.
they have to get the uniforms and
Right.
everything else, right?
So particularly how how you are going to raise the fund and then implement the program
Mm.
through your NGO.
So, like at the core of our mission is sustainability
Mhm.
and to have sustainable growth in the village. And so that means we have to be cautious about where we get our money from in our fundraising, so we
Mhm.
can grow naturally, and that we can have a sustainable, steady amount of
Mhm.
funds coming for the
Mhm.
village. Now, in the beginning, that'll be just large core donors, right, who can support our mission and our
So
investment in our
do you have
vision.
like identified some particular donor or like you started to fundraising or something like
Yeah. So for our past programs, we raised about just over $3,000 that went
Okay.
to paying for our registration fees to establish as an NGO.
So it's from your side or your friends and your like close friends or relatives or something like that?
Yeah, so probably this time, 60% of the funds were from just like a few core donors, right? And then 40% of the funds were from crowdfunding online,
Okay.
small dollar donations online.
Okay. So you do it from online.
Yeah, that's also a problem in Nepal, like how to accept, because while I like that it hasn't become so capitalistic and corporations here in
Mhm.
Nepal,
Right.
it also poses problems when you're trying to have
Mhm.
accept donations online.
I mean, you are taking the initiation to raise the fund for No Limit Nepals.
Yeah, like most of everything that we're doing is driven by me and my friend Kamraj.
Okay.
We came together and we thought of this idea, and when I had an accident in the U.S. on
Mhm.
a motorcycle, and I had a lot of time to recover,
Mhm.
but also a lot of time to sit online, sculpt our mission and our vision,
Mhm.
and to see about the infrastructure we needed. And Kamraj could be here setting up the infrastructure here legally. But this is something we see as a long-term sustainable thing in the village to make change.
Okay, great idea. Very young person having the with such a noble idea and then working for the
Um,
people of rural people of Nepal. So it's very inspirational and appreciable work. So thank you, Philip, for doing this all great things for the our people and our community. I really want to appreciate your intention and your hard work.
Thank you so much for talking with me today.
So hopefully you will get lots of support to the people of the
Mm,
Kalikot and
yes,
Nepali people. So thank you very much
thank you.
and wish you all the best.
Thank you.